Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for episode 91 of the show. I am your host, Louise H. Reed. With listeners in over 145 countries and millions of iTunes downloads and ongoing podcasts, I'm here each week to talk life and leadership with everyday people living extraordinary lives. People who take brave, bold action in pursuit of their dreams and goals and are here to share their journey to help you do the same in yours. As I say every week, there's nothing more valuable than time. So to thank you, as a way to thank you for spending time with me and sharing your valuable time with me, I love to give away prizes. So each month, I will have a Lady Boss Loyalty prize to give away. All you need to do to get entered into the draw is simply comment on a podcast episode on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and you are automatically entered. I am about 3 months behind, and so my new swag will be arriving any day now, and I will be announcing 3 guests or 3 winners for their contribution, for listening, and to say thank you. So please comment away. And without further ado, let me introduce you to today's guest. Today we have with us Lisa Ali Learning. She has been an entrepreneur for most of her life, running a broad range of successful businesses that have continued to inspire and challenge her. After earning her degree from St. Francis Xavier University, for my non-Canadian friends, that's a Canadian university on the east coast of Canada. After that, Lisa worked briefly in the banking industry. After recognizing her attraction for entrepreneurialism, she launched her first business, Wandering Spirits Aboriginal Artworks, through which she achieved financial and critical success. She then switched gears to start a property development and rental business that she ran successfully for 11 years, before turning her attention toward the next challenge. After the sickness of both of her sons due to the ever-growing Lyme disease epidemic, Lisa launched AtlanTick Repellent Products Inc, a tick safety company that takes an evidence-based approach to tick bite safety, working alongside a group of scientists to develop safe, effective, prevention-based solutions for people, dogs, and horses. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm glad. I was reminded again, as I read your bio, knowing this already about you, what an interesting series of professional and life challenges that you've had. I'm looking at banking, artwork, property and rental area, and then a Lyme disease or tick product. What?
Just a natural flow, right?
Right. So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a lot about this. I'd love to hear from you because I loved this part of your story when we connected briefly a number of weeks ago. I loved your story around, you're working in the banking industry and you had an awakening of sorts. Can you take us back to that time and walk us through what happened and what that catalyst was for you starting your first business?
Sure. I was doing the 9-to-5 thing 5 days a week, and I was miserable. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the 9-to-5 office job. But if you're waking up every morning and you're just dreading going to work, then there's something wrong. So it wasn't a good fit for me, but I was pretty young and I just kept on going because I didn't know what else to do. And there was 2 things that kind of happened that really changed my career path. The first one was I had just been transferred to a new town and I was there for 2 weeks, and I was walking home from the grocery store or the convenience store. And when I was walking, I heard this really loud bang, and I thought it was a vehicle backfired or something. But then when I turned my head to go look, I just saw this red truck coming right at me. And of course, no time to react. It hit me. I went flying about 15, 20 feet in the air, and I landed in the recovery position, for those who know first aid. And I just remember looking around, and all I could see were feet and the dent that I put into the truck. So it took me about a good year to get back to work full time. And I didn't it was a huge eye opener, because I remember I couldn't understand why this had happened to me. I was so young. I think I was 22 at the time, and I was angry and I was bitter, and I was thinking, I just don't understand. Of course, at one point, I was living in BC when this happened. At one point, I had to go back to Labrador for 3 months because I couldn't take care of myself properly. So I had to go back to mom and dad, and I would say to them, why would this happen to me? I don't understand. But of course, they didn't have any answers. And then I remember thinking one day, okay, Lisa, you can either continue on this path of bitterness and frustration and just wallow in it, or you can try to turn this around and turn it into something positive. And I chose the latter. Now, it wasn't just like, done. Oh, everything's great. It was a long road, and something I had to continue to work on and continue to remind myself. But I got back to work, and I was back to the 9 to 5. And basically, I remember I was on our break times and on our lunch times, it was mostly women that I worked with, and a lot of them, the mass majority of them, they had their retirement down to the day. And I was sitting there one time, and I was with a coworker who was 40, and she was telling me how she wished that she had done something else in her life, and she really would have loved to do this particular career. And I said, well, why don't you? And she said, well, no, I'm too old. 40 is not old. But that's what she felt.
Thanks so much for throwing that in there. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to cover that, because it is not. It was when we were younger, maybe.
It was. Yeah.
So, and she said to me, if I was your age, I would. And that was an eye opener, because I'm sitting there and I am my age. Yeah. And I'm looking at my future self, because I'm doing the same thing she did. I'm going to work because it's a safe bet. I don't have a solid plan B. So, and I thought to myself, wow, I am my age. I'm out of here. So I left the bank, and I decided to pursue photography. I wanted to do I was passionate about it. I really wasn't sure if that was the direction I wanted to go in, but I said, you know what? I know I want to have my own business. Let's follow your passion, see what happens. And then 3 months into that, I found an opportunity for a business. Looking back on it, it's really kind of funny, but because I started it, we had to do this little project called Photogram. And basically you create your own negative, and I did that with different objects and stuff. So I did that, and I came up with this little northern scene, because I'm originally from Labrador. I'm Nunavut, and I grew up in the northern scenes. So I thought to myself, I'm going to send that back home to Labrador, to one of the gift shops, and see what happens. And so I sent it back home. My mom dropped it off for me. And
shout out to mom, hey? Like, shout out to moms.
Yeah, absolutely. And moms and dads. My dad is really active in this business that I have now. But anyway, so I sent it to her, and she dropped it off, and it sold that day. Wow. On consignment. Wow. Now, looking back, honestly, it could have been just someone ran in, they grabbed it because they needed a gift, and there it was, and could have been that. But it didn't matter, because I saw this as an opportunity. I saw it as, oh, this is what I'm going to do. So I look back and laugh, because I had no art background, no art training, but that was it. I was going to be an artist. And that's what I did. I ended up having an art business, and it was quite successful. I have a piece that's in the permanent exhibit of the Labrador Interpretation Center. And I also ended up doing the logo for the when Trudeau came to Labrador there a couple of years ago to apologize to the residential school people. So that my logo was all over that, and that was really exciting too, to be a part of that.
I'd love to pause here for a moment, because there's so much to unpack in that story, which is a wonderful part of your journey. What I'm particularly interested in is, what was it in you, like looking back, that allowed you to be successful in this business, despite, like you said, having no background, no knowledge, no experience in this field?
Determination. I think, it really shook me up when I did have that accident and working at the bank, which I'm really grateful for, because it really shook me up, and it scared me a little, because it makes you realize, wow, life is really short. And then when you get to see people who are, 20 years ahead of you, and what they're doing in the situation, and if you can kind of look at it and you go, okay, that's not what I want. And if I don't want that, I have to make a big change. And so that was what kept me going. And then when I saw this little opportunity, it just, there was something that clicked, and it didn't matter, because I was going to make it work, period.
I love that. One thing that you said, I actually wrote it down because it's really struck me, is when you were reflecting on the being in the bank, you said, I'm looking at my future self. I'm looking at my future self. And to your point, what a gift to have had that at this time in your life, where you had the ability and maybe naivety. I think,
absolutely.
which is, I think is great, right? Could we not all benefit keeping that, maintaining that that innocent curiosity of youth? But that really struck me.
Well, it's funny because I did a presentation recently for the International Women's Day. And in it, I was talking about how when I was in grade 6, we had to, I was 11, and we had to do a project where we just wrote to our future selves. I don't know if I already mentioned this to you earlier or not, but we wrote to our future selves. And in my letter, I said I was going to be a doctor. I was going to have a family with 2 kids and a dog. And I was going to have a little house with a white picket fence. I had that white picket fence in there. And I was going to have all this done by the time I was 24 years old. Because to an 11-year-old, 24 is old. Is old. But of course now it's hilarious, because at age 24 to have all that, wow, that's great. But there's that innocence and there's that naivety, because if it was explained to me in depth with full comprehension, all the things that you have to go through to get ahead in life, I said, perhaps my future goals would have simply been to live in my parents' basement for the rest of my life. So it's kind of good sometimes when we don't fully comprehend it, and we just have that goal in our mind, and we just do whatever we need to get through it.
We do whatever we need to get through it. Absolutely. And so you did that with this business, and it sounds like it still continues. Is that right? So you have other things that you do, which we'll get into in a minute, but this, yeah. So this is where Dad plays some role, is it?
Not yet.
Okay. Not yet. Okay. We'll get there. So talk to us about then, what led you to starting a property development and rental business? Like, where did this come from?
Well, a couple things. One, I had kids. Suddenly I had kids. So when I started the art business, I didn't. And when you're on your own starting a business, you can eat peanut butter and crackers. It's fine as long as you're getting by, right? When you have kids, a little different. So I started thinking, okay, what else can I do? And also, when you're self-employed, you don't have a pension. So I said, I'm going to get into properties, because that can be my pension, and I need to make more money. I mean, I didn't need to, but I wanted to, because honestly, being an artist is great, but you really don't make a whole lot of money. So I thought, okay, I need to make a little more money because I have a family. So I just started reading, and honestly, for about 2 years, now this is before we had Google like it is now, right? So I'm reading good old fashioned books and different things like that. And I'm reading about property investing. And then I start to kind of study the markets and go, okay, Lisa, you're going to be living in Nova Scotia. So I started looking, I had a little checklist where I did my due diligence for different towns, and I figured out which ones were the best ones I was going to invest in. And then this was also back in the early 2000s. So it was fair. It was a lot easier to get a mortgage back then. And so I did that, and I started out with a condo, a pre-construction condo, and I sold that, and I took that money, and then I started to do other things. Like I did property development, I subdivided, and I was always a landlord throughout as well. So that was my property business. And yes, my dad, when he came to town, because he wasn't living in Nova Scotia at that point, he absolutely helped me out for sure.
I love it. I love it. I really admire your eye for opportunity and then just doing the work, figuring it out and doing the work.
Mm.
We really complicate things for ourselves. Complicate things, don't we?
I definitely think so. I think a lot of times people have already set up the limitations before they've even appeared.
Mm-hmm.
Or, it's always good to plan, don't get me wrong, but not to let those plans stop you from moving forward. Not to let the what ifs stop you from moving forward.
Well, that's why I also appreciate what you said. That was throughout 2 years. You did research, you did thinking, you did planning, it doesn't, going forward with fear doesn't mean that you leave your head behind.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
You don't let it stop you from moving forward.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, knowledge is key. And one of the great things that I've learned in all 3 of my businesses that I've had so far is people are usually, for the most part, willing to share their experiences, willing to talk to you. And if you just ask and listen. And that's how I learned a lot about the art business. I literally went around, I was living in PEI at the time, and I went around to different gift shops and galleries, and I just asked questions. I'd say 85% were receptive, and those who weren't, no problem, move on. But, and that's how you learn so much from people firsthand. It's huge. And now, again, we didn't have the internet like we do then. So now we've got both, and that's just, wow, the information that we have, that we can get, and the resources are unbelievable.
Yeah, although it is a little overwhelming. But yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like going into a university library and standing there not knowing where to go.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
Google,
that's great.
we don't have a guide. We don't have a guide when there are no librarians on Google.
No.
So talk to us a little bit about what contributed to the next shift, and the third business that you opened and are now actively engaged in.
So the property business was going along fine, great, but and I still have properties because, again, it's my pension. I'm not subdividing or doing anything or renovating as much or anything like that anymore, because that gets tiring after a while, and I start to get bored, and it's time for a new challenge. So I was looking for a new challenge and trying to find some opportunities and trying out different things, and they weren't working. But it's and another thing about properties too, this is a good tip for anyone who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, is that if you do have a lull period, you've got your properties paying. You should have it set up so your properties are paying for your bills. That way you can breathe a little bit, and there's not this panic of where's the money going to come from. So thankfully I had that opportunity, and I was looking for a few different things, and nothing was coming up, because it's always to be on the lookout for opportunities. I mean, there's so many of them that continue to pop up, and then to try to grab onto them. This one popped up due to a personal experience that I never would have expected. So what happened with this is both my boys, we moved to Mahone Bay in Nova Scotia. I had a neighbor come up to me and she said, "Lisa, just giving you a heads up. Ticks are here, Lyme is here, I got Lyme, just be careful." I knew nothing about it, but I thought, oh, okay, thank you. And then it was out of my head. And then my boys started getting swollen knees and swollen ankles. And I had no idea what that was. So we took them to Emerge. They did x-rays. We were sent home with, well, sometimes kids' knees swell. Or maybe he twisted his ankle and just didn't realize. And it doesn't sound right, and it doesn't sit right. But because it was so foreign to me, I thought, okay, so we go home, we ice his knee, etc., until it did go away. But then it came back. And so it came back a couple times. And then the last time it came back, my oldest, all of his hip joints and his knees were hurting. So I said, well, stay home from school, we'll see how you do. And then by the time the afternoon came around, I went in to go get him up and moving around a little, and he couldn't move. He was in so much excruciating pain, he could not move his legs. So my husband had to pick him up, throw him over his shoulder, and literally run him out to the car while he's screaming in pain. We take them to emerge, and then we're sent home with, well, most likely rheumatoid arthritis. We'll send you to we'll refer you to a rheumatologist. And then when I got home, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she said, well, Lisa, don't you think it could be Lyme? And I said, Lyme? No, he wasn't bitten by a tick. There's no bullseye rash, you know? And she said, look it up. There's more to it than that. So I did. And sure enough, there's Lyme arthritis, there's Lyme dementia, there's all different types of Lyme. And because of that, that makes Lyme very difficult. It mimics so many diseases. So it's very difficult to diagnose, very easy to misdiagnose. There's people who get misdiagnosed with MS or Parkinson's, schizophrenia one time. Like it's really, it's a mysterious disease. So long story short, we ended up getting both boys tested for Lyme, and sure enough, that's what they had. And we treated them right away. But now I'm in a situation where you can get Lyme multiple times. Just because it goes away, your body does not build up an immunity to it. So I didn't want to put DEET on my kids or any other synthetic chemical, but I wanted them to go ahead and play. Mm-hmm. So I looked around for natural tick sprays. And they're out there, but there's no, at farmers markets, but there's no science behind it. When I said, hey, how do I know this is going to work? It was, well, it works on my family and my friends. And maybe it does. But when you see your child to that point where he can't walk, my son ended up having to use a walker for a period of time. You do not want to take any chances. So I went home, and I just started doing my own Googling. And like you said, Google is like this big, vast world of knowledge and fake knowledge. So I didn't shift through the DIY sites. What I did was I went right to the scientific studies. And I read the synopsis of the scientific studies, because I don't have a science background, but anybody can read a synopsis. Anyone can read a summary and get the information they need out of it. So I did that. I also studied oils in your skin. And then I came up with 3 different concoctions or 3 different formulas that I was now confident would work on my kids. So I started selling it at farmers markets, and I was able to, because one of the things I thought to myself was, okay, I need to get this product out there, and I need to let people know how serious Lyme and ticks really are. Because if they were like me, I didn't know. I'd heard of it, but I didn't understand. So this was a great opportunity for me to be able to actually talk to people one-on-one and get out there. And it started like that. And then, of course, being the entrepreneur that I am, I thought, okay, here we go. There's the next one. So I started selling to local shops as well. And things were going fantastic. It was going good, because not only was this something I was passionate about, but it was something a product that I really felt needed to be on the Canadian market. So as I'm selling away and I'm making this stuff in my kitchen, one day I get this little knock at my door. And I go answer the door, and it's 2 guys from Health Canada. Mm. And they said someone had called that I was selling a pesticide. And I said, oh, no, it's a natural product, blah, 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 you know. And they said, no, anything, no matter what it's made out of, if you're claiming in any direct or indirect way that it can repel insects, you have to register it with Health Canada as a pesticide. Okay, great. I said, no problem. What do I need to do? And they said, well, do you have scientists on staff? Where I was thinking, staff? It's me and my husband in the kitchen, you know, serving this stuff up. There's no staff and no money for staff. So so I said, okay, thank you very much. See you later. I'll register the product, no problem. Hop online, go to register the product, and my heart just sank into my stomach, because there was pages and pages of scientific language within the application that I just couldn't. There was no synopsis for me to read for that. So I call up Health Canada. I said, listen, what do people usually do in this situation? And she said, well, think about hiring a consultant. And again, and she said, other than that, we can't help you. And again, I mean, hiring a consultant when I don't really know, there was no direction. There was no, well, what exactly am I hiring this consultant for? What type of consultant do I hire? It was just hire a consultant. So I was pretty down and out, didn't know what I was going to do, didn't want to give up, but yet I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't know how to move forward either. So I went around to once again, I'm out on my feet going around to different businesses, and I'm talking, because Mahone Bay is a really nice small business community, and I'm talking to my fellow business people, and I'm giving them my situation just in case they might have any kind of advice or any, light at the end of the tunnel. And they didn't. There was more, maybe you should try something that's a little easier, or they were just very empathetic and, but they didn't know what to do, of course. And then I was starting to feel like, okay, I don't know where I'm going to go from here. Maybe I should think of something different. But I really think this is important. And then a lady had taken the time to write an article about me in the opinion piece of our local newspaper. And in it, she said, I'll sum it up. She said, who do I think I am? I'm just a mom, and I shouldn't be selling this and doing this. And I looked at that and I thought to myself, okay, now I'm definitely going to make it work, because nobody is just an anything. We can do whatever we want if you just put the work into it. And so I almost wish I kept that article so I could send her a little thank you note, because from that, I went out again, and the first business I went to, it was a couple who said, listen, why don't you contact Leanne Strathby from Acadia Entrepreneurship? She's very helpful. Who knows? So I did, because of course at this point I'm willing to cold call anybody. So I called Leanne Strathby, and the odd thing is as I'm calling her and leaving her a message on her phone, she is sending me a message through Facebook to ask me how she can buy my spray. So huge coincidence. Doors were suddenly starting to open up. And Leanne put me in front of a whole bunch of different people from different organizations. She didn't know either, but she said, let's just put you in front of these people and maybe we'll find something. And sure enough, there was a lady there, Lee Hustis from ICE, all these government acronyms. And she hooked me up with Dr. Ferrone and Dr. Hillier from Acadia University. Dr. Ferrone had just moved and started working at Acadia 3 months prior, and just happened to have a background in essential oils. So it was amazing. A scientist with a background in essential oils. So oh my God, it doesn't get better than that. So suddenly there was that light at the end of the tunnel. Now that light has since closed and opened and closed and opened, because of course it wasn't smooth sailing, but I now have a team. I've got my scientists on staff, not technically on staff, but my scientists are on board. I now have 2 other business partners, and we all have different strengths. So there's constantly, we're not registered yet. We've been working on it for 2 years. There's always roadblocks, and these are big roadblocks that come up. And this is definitely the biggest challenge of my business life that I've ever gone through. But we keep conquering them. They come up, and if one of us gets down, the other ones will pump them up, and we just keep on going.
It's quite a story. It really is of certainly of determination, of grit. There's a book that I like called Grit. It's written by someone called Angela Duckworth, I believe, and she talks about the power of not stopping, and how that is, and she's got scientific research to back this up, about how that is actually more important than knowledge and IQ. Obviously, you've got to have some level of IQ, but it's really, we have the ability to do so much more than we think that we are.
So true. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%, because IQ, I mean, that's great, but it's so true. It doesn't matter, because if you don't have that, you can learn about different things. You can surround yourself with people who cover your weaknesses. there's so many ways around things. And I said to my sister-in-law the other day, we were sitting down having a coffee, and I said, you know, if somebody gives up on something, and I'm talking about like if someone wanted to, let's say I'm doing this tick spray business and I get really discouraged because somebody's called on me and wants to shut me down. Health Canada's at my door. Someone's writing an article about me. You know, I could easily say, forget it. This isn't worth it. Forget it. But that's on me. It's not on the person who called. It's not on Health Canada. It's not on the person who wrote that article. It's 100% me. Because while outside factors do influence our decisions, at the end of the day, we're the ones who decide. And I said to my kids before, I said, boys, I could be a neurologist. I don't have that super high IQ. And I said it would take me 20 years because I'd probably have to take courses over and over again till I got it. But you can do it. Yeah. It's a matter of just not stopping. And if I didn't, and I didn't end up being that doctor, but honestly, at the end of the day, as I grew older, learned more things about life, I didn't want to be a doctor. And that's okay. It's okay to change your mind as long as you're not doing it just because people are telling you you can't or your fears are overcoming you.
Yeah. It's intentionally pivoting, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's right.
So you've been through a lot, and obviously far more than you've even been able to share in the few minutes that we've been chatting. What would you say is like the biggest obstacle that you have faced in your life or business, and what has it taught you?
Oh wow, my biggest obstacle I faced, that would be, honestly, that would be I have depression. I have major depression. That would be my biggest obstacle, because all that is going on inside your head and you're trying to deal with that. Outside factors, you know, you can find ways to get around it all the time, and you can find ways to get people to help you get around it or whatever. There's always a way to move forward. But then when it's something internal like that, that's difficult and it's very scary. Again, there's ways to get around that too, of course, and I have found ways around it, but that has by far been the biggest challenge in my life.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I too have depression, and so recognize, you know, my own challenges, and I often will share with others that, and I believe this to be true for anyone, depression or otherwise, our biggest obstacle is between our ears.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And recognizing, though, that some of those challenges are going to be very different and very multifaceted and more complex, more medically related for some than others, right? So I'm certainly not meaning to understate the significance of it. But look at all what you have done. It's incredible that in spite of that, what you've been able to accomplish. Do you have daily rituals or certain things that really ground you that you can share with us that have worked for you in terms of being able to navigate all of what you have within your own mind and then navigate the world and business that you've been so successful in?
Definitely. And the thing is, always have positive thoughts in your head. Get those negative thoughts out, whether you got to sit down with a friend for an hour and vent it all out, and then move on. Don't hang on to them. And I have to tell myself all the time. I mean, this happens, you know, we're human. There's nobody, you show me someone who tells me that they think positively every moment of the day and they're just these, it doesn't exist.
They're lying.
They're lying, that's right. But I truly believe in what the words that you say, the words that you think in your head really dictates your life. So if I start to feel like I'm falling off the path a little bit, I'll start listening to Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dwyer, like all those different things like that, or reading different things. And I'll just have it on sometimes even in the background. And I think, oh, right, okay. And then I have to tell myself sometimes, because, you know, a lot of us, I think women especially, get that imposter syndrome feeling. And that's something I have to say, nope, there's no reason. And I talk to myself like this because, you know, like you said, the biggest challenges are in between our ears. And I say, there's no reason why you can't be that CEO like anybody else is. There's absolutely no reason. There's nothing stopping us. we can do it. It seems daunting to run it, and I'm growing this business, and my plan is to be the first natural ingredient tick spray on the Canadian market. I want to have it all across Canada. And currently our products this year are being put out across Canada, our other products. And as it grows and gets big, I'm thinking, holy crap, I've never done anything like this before. Who am I to think, well, who is anybody to think they can do it? Of course you can do it. And it just positive dialogue inside your head. And as soon as you hear that negative dialogue coming up about yourself, shut it down. Because eventually, if you don't believe it, but if you keep doing it, you'll believe it after a while. It's like brainwashing yourself, but it's the truth.
It is. Thoughts become things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I read that in a book. That really stuck with me. It was years ago now, and I wish I could remember the name of the book, but that was Thoughts Become Things. So choose your thoughts wisely.
Yeah, and it's so true, and I think it's something that, you know, it's so easy to dismiss or say, oh, that wouldn't happen to me. Then you're right, it's not going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Because if that's what you're thinking, it's not going to happen to you.
I remember saying to my kids when they were little, when they say, oh, I can't do that, you ask for help or you try again.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't do it just then, but not yet, right? Not yet.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I had as my screensaver on my phone, or whatever, it's not screensaver, some background on my phone.
Yeah.
Was why not me? Right? Because it's like questioning ourselves all the time, and flipping that. And so surrounding yourself with thoughts, with people, and even in your physical environment with positive expressions helps to mitigate these negative messages we're bombarded with constantly, aren't we? In the news, from others who are trying to protect us, but the messages might be limiting. So we have to counteract that somehow, and it's daily. It's a daily practice. It's daily practice.
Absolutely daily practice.
What kind of advice would you have for a female entrepreneur, or any entrepreneur, but other professional women embarking on entrepreneurship in terms of overcoming fear or moving forward in the face of fear?
I can easily say, just don't give up, keep on going, keep trying, do the positive thoughts. It's a lot easier said than done, but I think that's important to know. First of all, you do have to keep going. You do have to keep trying. You shouldn't give up. But no, it's not going to be easy. But the way I look at it is that the more difficult it is, the bigger the reward at the end. So the harder you work and the harder you push through, the bigger the reward at the end. And getting over that fear, one of my fears is regrets. And I had that since I was 14 years old. I remember my aunt had said something to me, and she said, oh, I wish I did this and I wish I did that. And I was 14, and I remember thinking to myself, leaving her house, and I was thinking, holy crap, what if I end up having regrets? So that's actually one of my biggest fears, and that helps me push forward, because I think, geez, Lisa, if I don't continue on with this spray, 10 years down the road, I do this a lot, 10 years down the road, when I look back, am I going to say, thank God I gave up? Or probably not. Or am I going to say, I wish I did it? I'm going to say, I wish I did it. If I do continue on doing it like I am now, in 10 years down the road, am I going to look back and say, geez, I wish I gave up? Of course I'm not. Yeah. So I think that's a really good way to look at things. If you're scared, if you're not sure what you're doing right now, and you think, should I take that easier path? Jump 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road and think about how you're going to look back at this.
I think that's awesome advice and guidance, and keeps us out of fear, away from making decisions from fear, and more towards a vision of who we want to be. I think that's really, really helpful. You've mentioned that you've surrounded yourself with really great people in your business now, and even you were talking about in the past that you would go into gift stores and rely on the kindness and generosity and sharing of others. I do think that we all need mentors and people like that in our lives. How have you decided who you connect with to be a mentor or business partner? How have you looked at aligning yourself with the right people?
I think a lot of that is just feeling out the situation through conversation, and through that then deciding, okay, if, for example, I have two business partners. One is my husband, who's just right on board like I am. The other one is Nancy. Now, she's a childhood friend that I hadn't seen for about 20 years. And Nancy calls me up one day, and she's asking me about Lyme because she's getting all these weird symptoms. And so we're talking about it a bit. And sure enough, she ended up having Lyme. But hers, unfortunately, was left for so many years that for her to go back to work full time was going to be really difficult for her. So gut feelings are a big thing too, because I knew Nancy, I know what her work ethic is like. And I called her up one day and said, Nancy, how would you like to work with me? And she said, oh my God, I was just talking to Brian, her husband, about it the other night. And I said the same thing. So, you're taking a big chance when you take on a partner, especially when you're like me. And I've been working on my own pretty much my whole adult life. I've been my own boss. I've had nobody else, that I needed to converse with. So it was taking a chance, but it was a really good chance, and it's worked out really well. And what I find the key is to have people around you that, first of all, I always say, listen, this is the way I am. I'm direct. I never mean to offend. If it does sound offensive, it's just me sincerely asking questions because I want to know the why behind it. And, and if I'm upset, I'm going to let you know, and I want you to do the same. So Nancy and I have been working together now for 2 years now. Of course, we've had arguments, but they haven't been abusive arguments. They haven't been yelling arguments. It's like, Nancy, I'm feeling really upset right now. This is why, and she'll do the same thing to me. And then we talk it out, because that's what a good relationship should be. Whether it's your husband and yourself, or your partner or whoever and yourself, or if it's a business person and yourself, or if it's your friend and yourself, they're all relationships, and communication is the key. And that's the biggest thing. And if somebody is not willing to communicate, or not on board with communicating in a healthy manner, then it's time to let them go.
Love that.
And so good.
Yeah. Better for everybody. What makes you feel inspired, or like your best self?
Oh, gee whiz. I don't just enjoy. What makes me feel inspired is looking at other entrepreneurs, for sure. I love seeing what other entrepreneurs have done. Love seeing the challenges they've come over, because they've gotten over, because that just inspires me even more. I got to tell you the story about this one girl who I met at the Woman of Influence Awards in Toronto. She had won the One to Watch Out For award. There was 5 of us recipients. And when she was in her 20s, one day she's hanging out with her friends. And then one day she looks out the window. She said it was raining. She went down. They were on vacation together, her and her friends. She lay down in the bed, and that was the last time she walked. She had gotten some kind of virus that had paralyzed her from the waist down. Talk about devastating. You're perfectly normal one day, and then you can't walk the next. That's crazy.
That was Bean. I had Bean on the show.
Bean! I love her. Yes.
I had Bean on the show. Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And instead of going down that road of negative, which I'm sure she was on it at some point, because how could she not have been? But she overcame it and then created this amazing business out of it.
I know.
Unbelievable.
It really is. And I think I love that you brought Bean up. So listeners, go check out that podcast episode. I can't remember what number it was. It was in the 80s. But it's a reminder or an example of surrounding yourself with people who are positive influences. So surrounding yourself with thoughts, people, and things that lift you up, right? That help you and one another get to where you're trying to get to. And so it's, it's not by accident that you were there, that you've connected. And I think that obviously continuing to surround yourself with people like that are going to continue to propel you, give you the help in those moments of self-doubt to continue forward. And so I love that you had the chance to connect with Bean.
And I think another thing that people need to realize too is when moving forward, becoming and this goes for everything in life, but if we're talking about entrepreneurs starting out, don't think it's going to be easy. And I don't mean that in a put you off way. What I mean is when you do start facing those challenges, you are not the only one. We're all facing these challenges ongoing. In order to make anything happen, you have to get over those humps. And you're successful when you keep going and you get over those humps and you don't stop and think, oh, roadblock, can't go any further.
I love that. I have a few rapid fire questions, if I may. Okay. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Keep doing what you're doing. No matter I used to tell myself, if people, after I did a couple of businesses, and of course you have the people who are trying to protect you, like you said, if people think you're crazy, I used to say, you're probably on the right path. So that's what I would tell myself. Keep going. Don't doubt it. Just keep going.
As kind of an aside, on the crazy comment, have you seen the Nike commercial? The crazy Nike commercial with Serena Williams? Google it after this. I'll put it also in the show notes. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's all about, if this is crazy, well, I'll show you what crazy can do.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
It's a really, really, really great ad. What does the world need more of?
Independence, independent thinking. That's what I definitely, and positivity, encouragement of each other, so.
Okay. I agree. Do you have a go-to book or podcast?
I'm obsessed with marketing. I love marketing because I love the psychology of people and how we work as human beings. It puzzles the crap out of me. I don't get it, but I love it. And one of the things that I really love is the, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose it right now, but O'Reilly, Under the Influence. That's a radio show, but I love that show.
All right. I'll check that out. I'm going to include that in the show notes too. And then finally, I always say my tagline is it to be brave, be bold, be happy. What does being brave, bold, and happy mean to you?
It just means living how you want to live. Maybe somebody wants to live where they're the doctor, or maybe someone wants to live where they're working at their local store. Perfect. As long as you're doing what makes you happy and being you.
I like that. Any final words or comments, Lisa, that you'd like to share with our listeners before we close the show that you've been dying to share, that not had the space to share yet?
No, I think we've covered a lot of it. I think we've covered all of it, but it's just don't give up, keep going, and don't let other people's opinions or thoughts change your mind or bring you down.
I love that. Lisa, thank you so much for your time, for all that you've had to share with myself and my listeners. And I look forward to getting my hands on some of your products. So that said, how can people get their hands on your product? How can they find out more about you and what other products that you offer?
You can always find out more about us on our website or on Facebook. We're AtlanTick.ca, and that's AtlanTick.ca. And that's the best way to go. Hop on. You can buy it online. You can buy it at your local. We're going to be in out your way. I guess we're going to be in PetSmart. I don't know if you guys have Lawton's or London Drugs, but anyway, local. We're getting out into the hardware stores, the health stores, the pharmacies. So
fantastic.
Call them up. If they don't have it, tell them they should.
Fantastic. And any American friends? Are there issues, like border issues? Can you tell me what, like?
No, actually, interestingly enough, we are allowed to sell our outdoor spray as a tick repellent in the US. We're not in Canada because it has to go through the rigorous, long, tedious, expensive process of getting registered.
Oh, so tell me, so we've got a lot of US friends. So are they able to get the product then from?
Yes, they can go on Amazon. We're on Amazon.ca right now, going to be moving to .com, or they can hop on our website and we'll ship it to them as well.
Hey, awesome. Lisa, thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for sharing the way that you have. And I look forward to hearing the news when you get approved from Health Canada.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And thank you to all of you, of course, my loyal listeners. And I'll remind you that information about my radio show, all the good stuff that Lisa and I talked about, will be in the show notes. And if you want a copy of the show notes, you can do that right now. You can get that through just joining my email list, which you can find at louisehreed.com. Also, a big shout out to my producer, Cameron Steele at Contact Talk Radio Network. And always my love, Jay Andrews, for all that he does. He's the wind beneath my wings. So until next Tuesday, I am Louise H. Reed, wishing all of you a bold and courageous day. Goodbye, my friends.